always slightly difficult to speak just after lunch. I try not to make you sleep. And so I'm supposed to make a presentation of SACD, which is, as you probably all know, the collecting society in France for screenwriters and directors. SACD was created at the end of the 18th century, not to manage the right of screenwriters and directors, because at that time they didn't exist, but to manage the rights of the authors of plays which were not paid. And Beaumarchais decided to create, to gather all the authors to obtain from the theater that they pay the fees when they were using the plays. So we have 55,000 members. With 55,000 members. Many of them are both authors of plays and or screenwriters or directors, and many of them, of course, have only one of these two functions. So our main responsibility is to manage the rights of our members by negotiating the agreement with the broadcasters, different kind of broadcaster. I will summarize the agreements that we have already signed later. And we collect and we distribute the monies to our members and also to the foreign collecting societies with which we have reciprocal agreements. And we have also a role of legal advice to our members and of lobbying toward the French government in order to defend the interest of directors and screenwriters. There is something which seems to be rather important for me. I think that one of the reasons of the strengths, as far as we can speak of strengths for SACD, is that we represent all the categories of author of audiovisual works, apart from the musical authors who are represented by the musical societies, SACEM for France. And I think that it's really a great interest for us to negotiate not only on behalf of directors but also on behalf of screenwriters, because the unity makes the strength, and it's easier to get good rate when you negotiate on behalf of different categories of authors that only on behalf of one category of them. What is characteristic in our activity is that we are entrusted by our member of their rights. So we consider that in the field of audiovisual work, we not only have a mandate to negotiate the rights of the directors, but also that we are entrusted, that we have the right to authorize or prohibit the use of the work. It is exactly the same situation as in the musical field, where the musical societies owns the right of their members and can deliver license on the basis of this property of the rights. It's very important because very often in the audiovisual sector, the weakness of the collective management is due to the fact that the collecting society, because of the individual contracts, can only deliver license for the secondary uses of the audiovisual works. And we deliver licenses for primary uses of the works and the secondary uses. Of course, it's important to make the difference between the two. What do I mean by primary uses? For me, primary uses is broadcasting of works by a TV channel, or the fact of making the works available on video on demand services. It's the primary uses of the work. The secondary uses of the work, it's when the TV channel are distributed by a cable operator or the remuneration for private copy. The difference between the two is that in the second situation you have a compulsory collective management of the right, and therefore it's necessary to have an authorization delivered by a collecting society. So in this case you cannot, you have to ask the author society to intervene. But in the first case, if you let the producers do what they want to do, and they love that, to do only what they want to do, they will explain to you that they are assignee of all the rights of the directors, and so they have to deliver the license directly to the TV channels, and that they don't need collective management of rights. And it seems, if you read the directive, or if you read even the French law, or even any national law in Europe, that the producers have a presumption of assignment of right, which can be changed in a certain way in the contract, but fundamentally, for economic reasons, the producer considers that they should be alone to deliver authorization on behalf of the directors and screenwriters. Well, it's probably the consequence of a long history, but in France, SACD achieved a collective management of rights which imposed the intervention of SACD not only for secondary but also for primary rights. It's because we fought very strongly to explain and to impose in the contract between authors and producers that there is always a provision which recalls that the rights have to be collected by SACD, and that the producer has to inform the broadcaster that the broadcaster has to pay SACD in order that the directors and screenwriters be paid by their collecting society. So it has been a real struggle to impose in the contract the intervention of SACD. So of course, the question which is raised, if we only think about the legal aspect of the situation, is how is it possible that a director assigns his right to a producer, what normally all the directors do, and that in the same times he entrusts SACD with the right to collect his remuneration and with the right to authorize or prohibit the use of the work. It seems that there is a contradiction between the law and the practice. I think that for me there is no contradiction. First, because when a producer delivers an authorization to a TV channel, he delivers an authorization on one specific film or for a catalog of films. We do not deliver authorization for one specific work. We do deliver authorization for all our repertoire. It means that for all the French movies which are not in the public domain since the beginning of the cinema and of the TV, and on behalf also of the repertoire of foreign society which gave us a mandate to collect their rights. So the authorization given by the producers and the authorization given by SACD has not exactly the same scope. This is the first explanation. The second explanation is that the responsibility of the producers is to manage the commercial life of the movie. And so, as there are several co-authors of the work, the producer cannot manage cannot sell the work to the TV channel or abroad if he has not a presumption of assignment of rights, because if he has to ask the pre-authorization to the authors, to the different categories of authors, each time he has to sell the work, he cannot manage the commercialization of the work. So the presumption of assignment of right to the producers, as its function is to give the capacity to the producers to manage the commercialization of the work. But the remuneration of the authors is the responsibility of SACD. And that's why the two entrustment of right, one to the producers and the other to SACD, are not contradictory. They are complementary because they have not the same purpose. And so it's very important to understand that collective management and individual management are perfectly compatible. They can be conciliated because they have not the same purpose. And if you look at the figures that we have, we see that when a director or a screenwriters sign a contract with the producers, most of the time he gets a lump sum for the creation of the work, but 50% of his remuneration comes from SACD, but this remuneration corresponds to the exploitation of the works on TV channels. And so you have two complementary systems. The individual contract gives to the director or to the producers a remuneration for the creation of the work, and the remuneration managed by SACD gives to the director or screenwriters a remuneration for the exploitation of its works on TV channel and VOD services. The only field where we do not deliver authorization and collect rights is the diffusion of the films in the theaters, because for historical reasons, SACD did not achieve, they could not impose collective management of rights in these fields. What is certainly a pity. So, which kind of contract did we sign? We have two kinds of negotiation with the broadcaster. The first one for the TV channel and the distributors, such as cable operators or satellite operators. We negotiate in common with other collecting societies in France. We negotiate in common with SACEM for the musical repertoire and with CAM for the repertoire of documentaries, because we have considered that we were stronger to have a good negotiation if we could discuss both of audiovisual works and also musical uses of the repertoire. That's why we have agreements with the main TV channels and the main cable and satellite operators in common with SACEM and SCAM. And in fact, it's probably one of the reasons why we got rather good rates of remuneration. After the negotiation, when we collect right, we make a split of the monies between the different categories of repertoire according to, rather complicated negotiation between the collecting societies to set a price of each minute of a work for music, for audiovisual, and for plastic and graphic arts. Well, it's rather complicated, but it's a negotiation which is set on objective criteria, and which is rather fair and which is renewed regularly in order to adapt to the changing landscape of TV. And in the other field of video on demand, we negotiate alone because we consider that video on demand services, such as Netflix, for example, are mainly devoted to audiovisual works. And so on TV, you have many issues which are devoted to music, so it can be justified to negotiate along with musical society. On VOD services, most of the time, it's mainly devoted to audiovisual works. So our interest is not to negotiate with the musical society. That's why we have made the choice, and we have signed an agreement with Netflix a few months ago, because as you probably know, Netflix has opened a service in France, as it has opened a platform in Germany, in Nordic countries, in Great Britain, and in UK and Northern Ireland. So we have signed an agreement alone with Netflix, which I think is a good agreement. I cannot give details about this agreement because Netflix is very insist very much on confidentiality of all the provision of the contract, and so we are committed not to give any details about this agreement. The only thing that I can tell you is that it's, as all our agreements, a percentage of the subscription price to the service. This is also something which is very important in our agreement with every broadcaster or every video on demand services. What we always try to do is to collect the rights with a percentage of all the turnover, of all the receipts of the broadcaster. It means that it can be a subscription price, it can be advertising revenues, it can be both for the TV channel, which have both advertising and a subscription price, such as Canal+. It can be also the public money, which is given by the state to the public channels, like France Télévisions. So for France Télévisions, we collect our percentage both on the public money which is given to the channels and on the advertising revenues. And this percentage gives the authorization to use all the repertoire of SACD. And after, when we collect the money, we set ourselves the parameters and criteria to distribute the money to the authors according to a system which is rather complicated, but which is based on the principle that we take into account the audience, the success of the work. So we take the work which are broadcasted between 8 p.m. and 11 p.m. are better paid than the work which are broadcasted during the night. It is obvious, and it is simple to understand. We have a difficulty here with the video on-demand services because by their nature, you have not a time where people can look at, can watch a film or a TV issue. So normally we ask the video on demand services to give us the number of viewing of each work, and we distribute the monies according to the precise number of viewing of each work. And normally we have no problems to get this information. So we collect approximately 210 million euros per year. 1/3 for performing rights, which does not concern audiovisual, and 2/3 for audiovisual work, mainly big TV channel and big cable operator and satellite operator, such as Telecommunication Society, which distributes the TV channels. We also collect the rights for private copy. The right for private copy in France, it's approximately, well, it can depend on the year, because as we have many legal problems with private copy, it's around 180 million per year, but it's the total amount of money that we collect, in common with other rights holder, because we have a single society, Copy France, which collect the money on behalf of producers, phonographic producers and film producers, authors of every kind of works, publishers of books to a certain extent, because they have also a right for a private copy, and also performing artists, which are also entitled by the French law to have a share in the private copy. And so for SACD, it corresponds approximately to 15 or 16 millions a year. The remuneration for a private copy corresponds approximately to 16 million. The other part going to the other rights holder. The private copy is really an issue today, I think, in every European country and at the European level, even if I am not sure that it would be really a good thing if the European Commission would try to harmonize the remuneration for private copy in every European country, because we have a system in France which is rather favorable, even if it is challenged by many legal disputes. I think that we have a lot of money which is at stake before the courts in France, because many people who are supposed to pay, such as Apple, refuse to pay, and they use any legal argument in order to avoid to pay the remuneration for a private copy. It has been the fact that they did consider at the beginning that we paid the illegal private copy, so the private copy made from an illegal sources. And we know now, because the European Court of Justice issued a decision to say very clearly that the copies made from illegal sources could not be considered as a private copy. So we have changed the tariffs in order to take that decision into account. Then we had a problem with the copies made for a professional purpose, because in our tariff of private copy, we could deduct that when you made a copy for private purpose, it would be included in the remuneration for private copy. So we had to change the tariff in order to take that into account. And the problem with the decision of the European Court of Justice is that they are supposed to be the truth before the beginning, from the date of the directive, which has been adopted in 2001, and so it's like the Bible. It's the truth in the beginning. So you have to change everything when you have a decision from the European Court of Justice. So you imagine that the people who are supposed to pay the remuneration for private copy use any argument to go to the court to say that the jurisprudence has changed and that the system should change, and that in the meantime they will not pay because it's too dangerous. They could not be repaid by Copy France, etc. So it raises a lot of problems. So we have this question, and we have also a discussion about the implementation of the remuneration for private copy on the cloud. It's an issue that was discussed a little bit this morning. We consider that when you make a copy in the cloud, it should be considered as a private copy, provided that the other condition of a private copy are met, and notably the fact that the copy must not be used, must not be made available to the public, and that it is only for the private use of the person who makes the copy. And more, the telecom operator, for example, will propose to their clients a service to make copy in the cloud. And we have a debate which is rather complicated because all the rights holders do not agree. I think that some phonographic and audiovisual producers consider that the copies made in the cloud should not be private copy because it is contrary to the conditions set in the directive. I think that they are wrong and that they will probably lose a lot of money if their approach prevails. And I remind you that at the end of the 90s and at the beginning of this century, many collecting societies and many producers, probably all of them, and IFPI, considered that digital copies should be covered by exclusive right and not by private copy. And I think that it was a big mistake because 15 years after, nobody would support this idea. And all the rights holders, mainly the directors and screenwriters, would have lost a lot of money if the private copy had been managed as an exclusive right and not as a remuneration right. Concerning the functioning of ESA-CD, because it's an important question, and Cécile will speak after about the new directive of the European Union about the organization and the control of collecting society. I think that the situation today is that a collecting society belongs to its members. So we have each year a general assembly where the members can come, they can ask questions, they can ask that some question be on the agenda. They can also, in the 2 months before the General Assembly, they can ask to see the documents that they want to see, and if they want to check a contract that we have signed with the broadcaster, they can do that. They cannot make a copy and diffuse it because it's covered by the business secret, which is recognized by the European law, but they can check that the contract has been well negotiated. They can also be a member of the board. We have a board of 31 members who represent each repertoire, and we have TV directors and film directors and screenwriters also. We have a special commission in order to deal with the question specific to their sector. So through the boards, they can easily control the activity of the society and make any critics if they have. But they have also the right to make compliments to their society if they wish. We have also for 15 years now a special committee, which is a public committee composed of judges and it's an administrative body composed of high civil servants and judges, which make every year a report on all the collecting societies in France, and which can it's a kind of a public audit each year of our accountancy, contractual practice, the use that we make of the money, and even for the cultural activities, because we are supposed to use 25% of the remuneration for private copy for cultural activities, for example, to help the creation of a new film, or to help theater, or to help screenwriters or directors to work. And so this special committee, which is called Commission Permanente de Contrôle, permanent means that this committee is always in activity. And so this committee issues a report, and we are supposed, and we do that, to publish this report on our website. So every member of SACD and also every foreign collecting society which has given us a mandate to collect the rights on its behalf can read this report and see the critiques that are made concerning the collective management. We have until now, SACD got very, very few critics, and when we were criticized, we have changed our practice. But all our management and organization is transparent and controlled. And we always say that, I don't know in other European countries, but at least in France, there is no public body, no public firm, no private firm, no administration, no association, which is more and more controlled than the collecting society. So I assume that it is impossible that anything wrong in a collecting society could not be seen and criticized by the Commission de Contrôle. And it's very strange to think that an administration or a ministry is not controlled as we are. And that it is probably more the case for the producer, because when we have critics about our management, it's strange to see that authors and directors have no means to control the accountancy of their producers, and nobody really controls the producers. And so we have several times said it's strange that we, the collecting society, we have so frequent and tight control, and that the producers, when you want to understand the accountancy of the producers, you have to be a specialist, you have to get the information, it's very complicated, and you have to understand the information. And of course, for authors, it's always very difficult to understand this kind of information. That's why we try to incite the Centre National du Cinéma to oblige the distributors and producers of film to accept a regular audit and to publish them in order that the author can control the right that they should get from their producers and that they very often don't get from their producers. That's why even if the new directive on the collective management can raise some problems because the text of the directive is not so clear, it will probably not change many things concerning our activity, because we already are perfectly, I think, transparent and clear for our members and for the foreign societies, which has given us a mandate to collect their rights. So I think that that's what I wanted to say about the situation of SACD, but of course if you have any question I can answer you.
I just had one question. On your General Assembly, the members are called there and they can join, and how, when it comes to voting for the board, is that done at the General Assembly, or how is, or do you have a statute who should sit in the board in your own statutes?
It's a vote in the General Assembly, and we have just a split in the boards between the different repertoire. We have a precise number of people who represent screenwriters, directors, authors of plays.
It's a direct election.
Yes, it's a direct election.
So I have the big task to present you the Collective Rights Management Directive, which has been adopted last year after a year and a half of negotiation. It's quite a rapid period to negotiate a directive, because it has been presented during the summer 2012 and finally adopted. The negotiation ended up in the end of 2013, so 1 year and a half is quite short for European Union process, because the Parliament decided to go just in one reading. It means that they didn't use the possibility to have two readings of the text, and they decided that they should move rapidly. So they entered into a negotiation process with the Council, the representative of the Member States. I will try to present you the main provisions of the directive, and I will be a bit exhaustive, but going rapidly on some aspects, and then we will do maybe a short break in the middles if you have questions, and then we will continue, because it's a huge text. It's more than 40 articles. And today the member states are in the process of implementing it. The deadline for implementation is in April 2016, and the Commission is monitoring very carefully the implementation process. So it's really the time for any organization or individual interested in the process to have discussion with the authorities at national level. So the directive is divided in two parts. The first one is on governance and transparency and organization of the collective management organization for all type of societies in all sectors, whether you manage whatever the kind of rights you manage and whatever the kind of rights holders you represent. This directive is applicable to CMOs. And the second part is only for online rights for musical works. And the mix of the two shows you that the text was made with music societies first. They were the primary objective of the European Commission. They wanted to control and to make sure that music societies work properly, but they extended the scope to all CMOs. So it has created some problems during the negotiation because some provision made for music societies were not necessarily appropriate for other sectors CMOs. I just take an example. Music societies manage all the rights of their members. They are not only active in secondary rights, or as we said, that it's the majority of the cases in the audiovisual sector. So the objective of the Commission was to ensure that they do not abuse of this dominant position, in a way, if I'm taking competition words. Whereas our societies in the audiovisual sector are very rarely in a dominant position. There is no society managing all kind of rights for their authors. So having provision that aims at restricting, in a way, the capacity of a society to impose tariff or to have a negotiation with a big company as users, the adverse effect on smaller societies like audiovisual societies was big. It would this kind of provision would have weakened this society, who today are not really the strongest organization. So I will not deal with the second part of the directive. The other characteristic of this text is that it goes into great details. Usually a directive is a text who state the objectives that member states should pursue in a specific field, and member states are left with the means and the way to achieve these objectives. Here, the objectives are there, but also the means. So for many aspects of the directive, there is no margin of maneuver for member states to implement it. It's really stating very precise provisions. However, there are some interpretation discussion now that we are at the implementation stage, and this is due to the great diversity of collective management organization structures and practices in Europe. And I think one of the positive aspect of this text was that it showed to the European Commission and European institutions how diverse collective management can be, because it's only a tool that is used by many different kind of rights holders and organizations that can be in a very different position in a specific sector. As I just said earlier, audiovisual author societies are not in the same position as music rights societies, and it makes a huge difference sometimes when you have to apply some of the provisions. So I'm going to present you the directive following the structure of the directive, which has general provision on scope, definitions, then representation and membership with general principle, the rights of rights holders, the governance bodies, general assemblies, supervisory function, some obligations for the managers, Then you have the management of rights with distribution rules, undistributable money, management fees. And the last part is about transparency and reporting, with a quite heavy obligation of publication of data on the revenue streams and allocation of revenues. So the directive is for collective management organization established in the EU. It doesn't directly address societies that would be established outside the EU, but member states can apply the directive to those CMOs if they want to. There are some provision applicable to independent management entities, and we can see from the definition what is an independent management entity. But first, let's look at the definition of the collective management organization. So the definition is any organization which is authorized by law or by way of assignment, license, or any other contractual arrangement to manage copyright or related rights on behalf of more than one rights holder for the collective benefit of those rights holders as its sole or main purpose, and which fulfill one or both of the following criteria: being owned or controlled by its members, or organized on a not-for-profit basis. So this is what a collective management organization is. For me, the most important thing is that it's owned or controlled by the members or organized on a not-for-profit basis, and it's acting for the collective benefit of the rights holders. An independent management entities is supposed to be something else, but I think that during the negotiation process, this notion was not very well understood. So in our perspective, independent management entities are societies that are not owned or controlled by rights holders or not established as a not-for-profit basis. And also it's entities who are not acting for the collective benefit of their rights holders. Here we talk about private companies who want to manage rights more as agent. And you have this kind of societies, not really in the audiovisual sector, but for example in the text sector. They try to take some rights or to be mandated to have some rights. But I think that here there is a missed opportunity to really address some entities who could be competitor to collective management organization, but without the same obligation than collective management organization. But anyway, there is a recital of the directive which make it clear that audiovisual producers, managers, and agents are not independent managing entities because they act in their own interest. So keep it away clearly that these three categories are not cannot have any provision of the directive applicable to them. As far as the representation and membership of CMOs are concerned, the directive state general principles that are very important. CMOs act in the best interest of their rights holder, and they cannot impose obligations on them that are not objectively necessary for the protection of their rights and interests or for the efficient management of their rights. So I think that the collective purpose and the interest of members is very high on the obligation of the CMOs. The directive also set very precise provision for the rights of rights holders. So these rights have to be set out in the statutes or the membership agreement in writing. And for each type of right, category of right, and type of works and territories, the consent of rights holders to authorize the collective management organization has to be given in writing. And the directive also provides that CMOs are obliged to manage rights for rights holders when it falls within its scope of activity. So CMOs can't say no to someone, I don't want to manage your rights. As soon as you have activity in this category of rights, CMOs are obliged to manage the rights. It provides also a right to terminate the authorization or to withdraw from a society upon serving a 6 months notice or less. And societies insisted to have the possibility to that the withdrawal take effect only at the end of the financial year. Because the rights are calculated for financial years, it's less complication if there is only one date of effect, and if it can continue, there is some stability of the repertoire, at least for each financial year. Then the General Assembly is recognized as the main body who makes decision in CMO. So it has to meet at least once a year. And the core competencies are the general competencies of any General Assembly. It has the power to establish and amend the statutes and membership terms. The General Assembly decides on the general policy on distribution, on the general policy on the use of non-distributable amounts, general policy on investment, general policy on deductions, the use of non-distributable amounts. So it's not only general policy on the use of non-distributable amount, it's also precisely the use of this amount of money, appointment and removal of the auditor for the accounts, and approval of the annual transparency report. These are the core competences that cannot be delegated to any other body. And then you have some competencies that can be delegated to the supervisory board. So the supervisory function, I will come to this a bit later. There is some discussion about what is a supervisory function and what kind of body can exercise it. So as part of the competencies that can be delegated, there is risk management policy, approval of acquisitions and sale of property, mergers and alliances, setup of subsidiaries, acquisition of other entities or shares in other entities, approval of loans. So it's really detailed. They also can delegate to the supervisory function if it's a dual board system. It means if there is, for example, a board of directors on one hand and a supervisory board. So if this is the case, the supervisory board can be entrusted with the appointment and dismissal of the directors, so the members of the board of directors, the review of their general performance, and approval of their remuneration. The directive also states clearly that all members have the right to vote at the General Assembly. You can only have restrictions that are fair and proportionate and based on published criteria of duration of membership. For example, you can set up some restriction that you don't have directly a right to vote the first year you enter the society, or depending on the amounts received, you can decide that there is a proportional voting rights depending on the amounts you receive, or that you have to reach maybe a threshold before having right to vote. Then there was lots of discussion about proxy, because there are a few societies who do not provide for proxy voting. They offer other possibilities to participate to the General Assembly, such as distance voting via postal voting or electronic voting. And some societies were very afraid about giving the possibility to give proxies to anybody, your grandmother or your agent or a producer, and that it could be other interests could enter the General Assembly. But the directive is quite open about proxy. It can be given to any person or entity as long as there is no conflict of interest. And I think there will be lots of discussion about what is a conflict of interest. It's valid only for a single General Assembly meeting, and member states may provide for restriction to the proxy voting if it doesn't prejudice the participation in the decision-making process. So it gives also the possibility in countries where there is no tradition of proxy to restrict the risk of proxy being destroying a bit the usual basis of membership. I don't think this is very important. This is when there are other legal forms and you can't have a General Assembly as such. The directive provides for alternative possibilities. Then the supervisory function. So it's the body which is can be exercise power delegated by the General Assembly, but the directive says clearly that there should be a fair and balanced representation of the different categories of members in the supervisory body. So it has to be the mirror of the composition of the General Assembly. The supervisory body has the power that are delegated by the General Assembly when it is the case. And its main mission is to monitor the activities and the performance of the person who manages the business of the CMO. When the implementation of the decision of the General Assembly and of the different kind of decisions that are made at the General Assembly. It has to report to the General Assembly at least once a year. Then the third body of a collective management organization are the managers. What is interesting is that the manager are not defined in the text of the directive, and they are not even named. It's the person who conducts the business. Let me check. Obligation of the person who manages the business of the collective management organization. So they don't use the word manager, so it's my interpretation. So member states have to ensure that each collective management organization take all necessary measures so that the person who manages the business do so in a sound, prudent, and appropriate manner, using sound administrative and accounting procedures and internal control mechanisms. In addition, they have to put in place procedures to avoid conflict of interest. And when conflict of interest arise, they have to set up procedures to deal with them. Part of these procedures are annual individual statement to the General Assembly on the interest they can have in the society, the remuneration they can receive from the society, and the amounts that they can receive if they are rights holder. So all this information has to be in an individual annual statement. And they also have to make a declaration on actual or potential conflict between their personal interest and those of the CMO, or the obligation they own to the CMO. So, you know, if they have interest, if they are also producers, for example, or involved in any other activity. So this has to be on the declaration. Then I go, so if you have questions, we can first address this governance part before I enter into the management with the distribution rules, etc.
I would like to know if the directive says something about the votes. I mean, is available a system of votes based on the is it one person, one vote, or is it available about the amount of the incomes of every associated member? Well, that's it.
So as a minimum, the directive says clearly that all members have the right to participate in and the right to vote at the General Assembly of Members. However, member states may allow for restrictions on the right of the member of the CMO to participate and to exercise voting rights only on the basis of the following criteria: duration of membership and amounts received or due to our members, provided that such criteria are determined and applied in a manner that is fair and proportionate. So for me, this means that you can have different kind of votes, with some people having more voting rights than the other, as long as the rules are clear, published, transparent, fair, and proportionate.
I would like to know if the directive says something about the legal construction, because we have CMOs with different legal constructions. You have associations, limited liability companies, and cooperatives. Does the directive prefer any legal construction, or does it say anything about it? And also, I would just add the question also to SACD, because I want to know which legal construction SACD has.
So I can start with SACD. Is a civil society. It's a cooperative society, but with a French civil society status. And in France, all CMOs have to have this legal form. As far as the directive is concerned, there is no promotion of a specific legal form. The directive tries to take into account all possible legal forms, and to have rules that would work for all possible legal forms. And for example, they address specifically the case of foundations, where there is no assembly of individual rights holders, or the case of construction like Copy Swede, who is an umbrella organization, so it's not individual rights holders who are the members. So for example, for umbrella organization, they say that if individual rights holders are not members of the CMO, the General Assembly is the representative organization of these rights holders. This is the slide I skipped. So, in a nutshell, it addresses all possible forms, but it doesn't promote a specific form.
A lot of CMOs who have the construction of a cooperative, they have kind of two members, because they have the members of the cooperative and also the member, like, you know, all authors. Mm-hmm. So. Next question, does the directive say something about this two class of membership? And also, a question to SACD, do you have two kinds of members, which meaning does every author automatically also a member of the cooperation, or is there two kind of memberships?
So as far as the directive is concerned, they don't. When they say every member has a right to vote, there is an equality principle, but it doesn't say anything about who can be a member. Well, a member has to be a rights holder. I can read the definition of rights holder. Who is
well, that is clear. That is clear.
Okay,
So, but you have right holders, which are members, and then you have members of a cooperation cooperative.
Well, for me, a cooperative just means that the society belongs to the rights holders.
Okay, so also in SACD, all rights holders are members of the cooperative.
Yeah, they have a share in
That
the
is the answer
society.
to the
Maybe
question.
you can give the microphone to Hubert.
Well, that is the answer to the question, because we have two classes. You have the right holders, and then you have the members to the cooperative, which is a severe thing in Austria.
Okay.
Okay, I just have a short question now about being member. Does the directive have any division between dead authors and their representatives, allowing them or not allowing them being a member? Or I know they have the right, but is there any rules about the right of being a member of a society?
No, it just says a member means a rights holder or an entity representing rights holders, including other collective management organization and association of rights holders, fulfilling the membership requirements of the collective management organization and admitted by it. So it's there is no.
So does that mean that reading this and understanding it means that the heirs to that author
can be members?
Can
Yeah.
be members.
Yeah,
Or
because
should be allowed to be members.
yes.
Should, okay, because
Because
okay,
a
thank
rights holder can be a heir.
Okay.
There is a definition of rights holder where it means any person or entity other than a collective management organization that holds a copyright or related right or under an agreement for the exploitation of rights or by law is entitled to a share of the rights revenue.
So I don't have a question for Cecile, but would like to point out, now we are speaking about the voting right. This is a very dangerous field because what is fair? We don't have any definition of what is fair. But we believe, we believe, that there are different questions you vote about and different... so there are some questions where we all should be equal. And this is, let's say, when the collective society adopts the rules of distribution, there should be equality for all of us, okay? But when, let's say, we speak about a certain question regarding distribution of certain amount of money where my money is not in, I cannot be in the same position as the people who actually gained that money, okay? So I believe that collecting societies will have to be very, very, very careful in order that the stars are not going to take over the process. It was something that happened here in Slovenia. One of the collecting society had so-called holy cows. This was 150 people who were determining the destiny and the earnings and everything for several million right holders. That is something that should and should really not happen. And this clause is opening the door to get the danger in the room. So we will have to be really careful on how to administer and how to exercise this right or obligation, whatever you call it.
I would like to add just to the board that we have a case where the court said that the copyright is as a member of a CMO is like a human right, voting right for elections. So if there is a person who earns more and pays higher taxes, he has only one voting right for parliaments, or, you know. So they kind of made a correlation between voting right as a political right to a rights holder's right to vote or to be active as a member of a CMO. So to me also this open doors for differentiation is quite dangerous, because the practice here was abused.
Well, I think the directive is neutral about that. It ensures that every member has voting rights, so that nobody can be excluded, and no rights holder can be excluded from the General Assembly. But it doesn't preclude for the possibility to have differentiation. Some people who earn more money can have more voting rights. But this is something that has to be approved by the General Assembly. So it's a discussion in the hands of the General Assembly, because the General Assembly approved the status and the membership terms.
I am confused about the Slovenian intervention. Because as far as I understand, the directive, please correct me if I'm wrong, says very clearly, every member has a right to vote. And it says very clearly, the moment I'm a right holder and I have the right that the CMO takes my rights and is managing me, so that's the moment where I have a right to vote. That hasn't been the case until now. So it opens the door that you have to stand up and say, I am a right holder, I have a right to vote. Then again, you have the possibility of some votes count more than others, but you have no longer the possibility, no CMO has the possibility to exclude right holders from votes. Is that correct?
That's my interpretation, yes.
Okay, so we're firm on that. Thank you.
I would just like to explain the situation more. But if you already have a CMO that was taken over by, let's say, 150 special people, stars, changing the rules of remuneration so that they get the majority of the money, even this right won't change it, because those people that receive only, let's say, they can say, okay, from now on, every euro is one vote, or the weight of the vote is equal to 1 euro, let's say. So you have a one vote, but your vote has a weight of as much money as you've earned last year. But if they've already made the rules, bent the rules, so they get 90% of the money, if they've taken over the system already, this rule is just, and they'll say, yes, we made them vote, they have the voting right. But they can make them reciprocal to their value in money, because that's what the directive says. It should be fair. And they say, yes, okay, there's 6,990,000 of votes, but the weight of those votes is 10% of the money, so they vote against us, but we have the 90% of the vote. So this directive doesn't change for those situations, nothing. That's what I was trying to explain.
Adela, it's here.
I'm very disturbed with this. If you have more money, you are stronger in voting. Because I was vice president of our collective society since last year. That means that people who are against implementation of the laws for right holders, like cable right and all this, and they are strong. They have a lot of money, they receive a lot of money through our collective society. They will implement members of the society so that we can't pass the fair laws. Do you understand me?
No, I don't understand what cable operators
No,
are. They
cable
members?
operators. I just said because we have a fight, we want to fight with them and to have our remuneration. So that means that sometimes it happens in my country that people who have more money, they if you pay the music, you just say what's going to happen. Such kind of people could be implemented in the society as right holders, or they're already right holders. So, and it's disturbing. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't understand exactly. Oh yeah.
I think the directive can't solve this kind of issue. There are many societies where there is some. I repeat, access to voting rights is ensured to any member. Then there is the possibility to that some voting rights would weight more if you earn more money from the society. Some societies have implemented this rule to ensure that professional authors are ruling the society, so that it's not necessarily just people who made the work once, who are not anymore involved in the profession of authors. So it's used by some societies to ensure that these are the professional authors who run the society. Yes. But then it's not, so it's an open possibility, I think, for this kind of objectives. But you're right, it can be, if the General Assembly agree, it can be, the limits, are not there, because this is only general principles. Then you have to be very careful at the implementation stage, and also in the society. And again, if there is no cohesion in the society, the directive is not going to impose this cohesion.
Let's to clear out the mismatch we did with the Slovenians, guys. Okay, so first thing, according to our legislation, local, if you work and operate on open market, there's no rule that should force you or forbid you to become a member or of a certain association, unless the law itself sets this obligation. Let's say, me as a lawyer, I have to be a member of our chamber, but I don't know, if I'm a merchant, if I sell something, they cannot force me to become a member of their trade chamber, okay? So that's why the collecting societies in Slovenia distinguish between a right holder and a member. So if you are a creator, you're a right holder, and you're entitled to the money regardless whether you are a member of a collecting society or not. You can provide just your details, so bank account, tax number, and address, and everything that's necessary. And you can be a member, but you have to express this specifically, and you say, I want to vote and I want to be elected, okay? So this is the distinction. The trouble we had, and this rule opens the door for this, is that a certain collecting society said, okay, just distinguish between regular and irregular members. Regular members were the ones who earned more than a threshold that was set by the assembly. And now let's say we are assembly here, and we say, okay, everyone that has a BMW can vote. So we set this threshold, and then we say, okay, now all the money we have is going to be split between us. So the one that has BMW 3 gets 5 times index, okay, index with 5 times more. The one with 5 gets 7 times more, 7 gets 10 times more. And we set these rules, and with such setting of the rules, we disclose or force out all the ones that don't have BMWs. In other words, all the people which didn't get to this threshold, they didn't get any kind of possibility to decide on the General Assembly. And the ones who were there to decide, who were left to decide, were the ones who created the system on how to distribute the money further on. So they gained even more money. And this is the trouble with the shareholder principle that's, I believe, not good for collecting societies. So that's why I'm telling you, there are issues where we should all be equal when we vote, and there are issues where, okay, we cannot be, it's not necessary that we are equal. But even though the system in Slovenia right now shows that it is possible to be equal in all the cases. Maybe it's not good and completely fair, but a collective management of rights is a approximation of fairness. It's not each time fair.
Okay, so I continue with next chapter on management of rights. So this chapter addresses collection, deduction, and distribution rules. So as far as collection and use of rights revenue are concerned, the directive set general principles. First, the societies have to be diligent in collection and management. They have to keep separate in their accounts the rights revenues and any income arising from the investment of rights revenue on one hand, and their own assets and income arising from such assets, management fees, and other activities. It's not permitted to use rights revenue for purposes other than distribution, except if there is a decision of the General Assembly. So it ensures that revenues are collected to be distributed. And it has set up also very detailed rules on investment, how the societies have to behave when they invest the rights revenue. So it has to be very where it is. It has to be prudent and ensure the security, quality, liquidity, and profitability of the portfolio. It has to be in the interest of rights holders, etc. As far as deductions are concerned, the collective management organization have to provide information on the management fees and other deduction before a right holder entrusts the society to manage his rights. Deductions have to be reasonable in relation to the services provided and established on objective criteria. Management fees shall not exceed justified and documented costs. And social, cultural, or educational services funded through deductions have to be provided on fair criteria. So these are general principles for deduction, which ensure transparency of them. Then we come to distribution rules. So this is also very detailed in the directive with time limit to distribute, etc. So first, CMOs have to distribute and pay amounts due to rights holders regularly, diligently, and accurately. They have to distribute no later than 9 months from the end of the financial year in which the rights revenue was collected. And unless objective reasons prevent it, the collection has to be made within 9 months unless objective reasons prevent it, relating in particular to the reporting by users, identification of rights holders, or matching of information on works with rights holder. Our discussion in the SAA shows that many CMOs will have to change their distribution scheme to respect this time limit, in particular for private copying distribution. And there are uncertainties as to the starting point of the 9-month period when money is coming from another CMO. For example, when a CMO is collecting for several societies, or when there is a special collecting body. Or also when the money is received in several installment, where what is the starting point of the 9 months? if it's in between 2 financial years, for example. The directive provides for steps that the society has to take to identify and locate rights holders. So it calls for societies to take all necessary measures to identify and locate them. It requests that societies make available information on works for which rights holders are not identified or located to their rights holders and sister societies 3 months after the 9 months deadline. And if there is no result, they have to make the information public 1 year after the 3 months period. Then you have special rules for non-distributable amounts. It sets up the period after which amounts are considered non-distributable. So it's 3 years from the end of the financial year in which the collection occurred. And General Assembly shall decide on the use of the amounts. We also saw that the General Assembly decide on the general policy on non-distributable amounts and also on the precise use of them. There was a bit of a battle in the European Parliament on this provision because there was attempt by some MEPs and also some member states to take this money away from the societies, saying, well, you were not able to reach the rights holders, so it's not money pertaining to your community, and we would like to take it to fund cultural activities on our own. So there is a compromise in the text which says that the member states may limit or determine the permitted uses inter alia by ensuring they are used in a separate and independent way to fund social, cultural and educational activities for the benefit of rights holders. SA members will be very careful in monitoring the implementation of this provision because it still opened the door for some member states trying to avoid that this money is managed by the society for the usual purpose we know, like cultural or social funds. They agree that this money could go to social and cultural funds, but some member states would like that it's not directly managed by the societies. There are specific provisions for distribution of money collected on behalf of representation agreements. So when a society is representing foreign rights holders through a representation agreement, the directive says that there could be no discrimination against these rights holders, whether on applicable tariff or management fees, collection and distribution rules. It cannot have additional deduction unless the other CMO expressly consent to it. So CMOs entrusted with representation of foreign societies have really to be transparent and fair to the repertoire they represent, foreign repertoire. A CMO entrusted with a foreign repertoire has to pay, to distribute the amount of money in the same deadline, 9 months after the end of the financial year. And when the CMO receives money from a foreign society, it has to distribute it within 6 months from receipt. So in the end, we have such kind of scheme, which I know you can't read it, but it shows you that for societies, to set up the different deadlines and period of distribution, depending where the money comes from, it can be a bit a nightmare. So, and if you add to that the uncertainty on the starting point of some deadline, I think there are discussions taking place at national level right now. Then I come to the last part of the, nearly the last part on transparency and reporting. So there are two aspects: individual reporting to individual members and rights holders, and information that has to be made publicly available. the society have to provide each right holder who had rights attributed in a financial year a yearly report on the rights revenue that was attributed to him, describing the amounts paid per category of rights and per type of use, the period during which the use took place, unless they don't have the information because of a lack of reporting by the users. This yearly report has to make clear the deductions that were made for management fees and the other kind of deductions. And also it has to say about the outstanding rights, which might be still to be paid. Then there is a long list of general information that has to be published, in particular on the website of the society. The statute and the membership terms, standard licensing contracts and standard applicable tariff, the list of managers, the general policy on distribution, general policy on management fees and deductions, the list of representation agreements, general policy on the use of non-distributable amounts, and the complaint procedures and dispute resolution procedures. And the last transparency scheme is an annual transparency report that has to be made public for each financial year, no later than 8 months after the end of the financial year. There is an annex for this in the directive, a 3-page annex which lists all the kind of information that has to be mentioned in the annual transparency report. So apart from the usual financial statements, it has, and the activity report, and I think it's a usual thing, the transparency report has to describe the legal and governance structure, the entities directly or indirectly owned or controlled wholly or in part by the CMO, or when it has shares into another structure, the total remuneration paid to directors and managers. It has to include a special report on the use of amounts deducted for social, cultural, and educational services, and financial information on rights revenue per category of rights and type of use, on the cost of rights management per category of rights and type of use, on amounts due to rights holders, again per category of rights and type of use, and on the relationship with other CMOs, also very detailed information on money collected, distributed per category of rights and type of use. So it requests a very analytic, do we say that? Analytical financial information that I think many societies will have to put in place. The idea of the Commission, I think, is to ensure comparability of the performance of societies. But in doing that, it also, so from one country to another, but it doesn't necessarily provide for, I mean, the societies in the different sectors do not have the same analytical financial information. So you do not define necessarily exactly the same way the different rights. Broadcasting rights, for example, for music composers is not equivalent to broadcasting rights for audiovisual authors. So I think comparability will have some limit. Final provision, the compliance with the directive will be monitored by competent authorities. So each member state has to designate a competent authority in the country that will ensure that CMO comply with the directive. And these bodies will have to be notified to the European Commission so they know who is in charge of the monitoring. Then by 10 April 2016, which is the deadline for the implementation, each competent authority will have to notify the Commission with a list of the CMOs established in its territory. So the CMO, they will monitor the compliance. The directive also established an expert group made of representatives of the competent authorities, and these people will be able to raise concern or problems related to the implementation or the functioning of societies in their countries. Now we are in the process of the implementation of the directive in the different member states. The Commission has launched a specific work stream to monitor this implementation. They say they want to ensure consistency between the different member states. So they have made a questionnaire to member states to ask them their calendar of implementation, if they think they will have to change a lot in their law or not. The Commission has organized implementation workshops with all the member states, and they also offer bilateral meetings to member states if they want to address specific issues. So many member states are today looking at their national law, if they have one, but most of them have a provision in their law about collective management organization, so they are reviewing their legislation to see if they need to change it to comply with the directive, or if it can be considered compliant. And most of the societies are themselves reviewing their statutes and operation in order to look at if they need to change their operations or rules in order to comply with the directive. So as a conclusion, I would say that with this text, collective management organizations are becoming the most regulated organizations in Europe. Even in the financial sector, they do not have such strict rules and regulation. The positive aspect of that is, because we have to look at the positive aspects too, is that the legitimacy and the necessity of CMOs are reinforced by such a text, and including in the audiovisual sector, because I think many CMOs sometimes face question about the value of collective management in the audiovisual sector. So I think this text can be of help in this context. And my third conclusion is that, well, these organizations are in the hands of their rights holders, of their members. So you have to get familiar with these rules, but in the end you can use them. If there was a need for rights holders to be reassured that they are the owners and of their societies, I think this is a text which shows it again.